Okay, I'm going to start the oral exam here, so I'm going to go through pretty quickly because I did write some things down. All right, so the first question is connect subject matter to real life contexts. And one of the books they say school is real life for students, and they learn best when they say a purpose for learning. The social contexts that the teachers create are key. They must think about their roles, what they believe about how students learn. They must decide to have a democratic classroom where students' abilities in reading and writing develop through meaningful literacy activities. Okay, one of the strategies in Thompson's book was the hot seat. Hot seat is a role-playing activity that builds students' comprehension. Students assume the persona of a character in a story, the featured person in a biography, an author whose books they've read, or a well-known real-life person, and sit in a chair designated as the hot seat to be interviewed by classmates. It's called the hot seat because students have to think quickly and respond to their classmates' questions and comments. Wilhelm 2002 explains that through the hot seat activity, students get to explore the characters, analyze story events, and draw inferences and try out different interpretations. Second question, use digital tools and learning technologies across learning environments as appropriate. Okay, read, record, listen. In Shifting the Balance uses technologies for students to hear their reading. To give students opportunities to hear themselves as a way to reflect on their fluency. Let's use technology to help ourselves read. What do you notice about the sound? What can you do to improve your rate, accuracy, and expression? In Scaffolding, repeated reading, Shifting the Balance, students listen to an audio recording of a text, following along with the print at the appropriate speed. Students read along orally on subsequent reading. Eventually, the students read the text without audio assistance. Okay, one strategy for students to use technology to produce and publish their writing. Students can also do Google Slide presentations. In my observation class, students presented a book report with partners on Google Slides. This encouraged them to read the book, look for information to put their slides, information to put on their slides, like settings, characters, and summary. Per Language Arts patterns of practice involving young students in digital technology clearly affects their academic success. In addition to enhancing literary knowledge, they develop the fine motor skills needed for keyboarding, the problem solving necessary for navigating search engines, and they also develop ability to multitask, to moderate their attention and difficulty activity, and to attend to confusing content for longer periods. In social studies for grade 5 part of the lesson plan I created was for the students to do a PowerPoint presentation on a specific group of immigrants and to use Google search to find resources and information. In the generalized, next one is plan, design, implement, and monitor instruction, consisted with current subject-specific pedagogy. Okay, in the generalized lesson plan, history was integrated with literacy and writing. This is my plan. Students worked on a learned specific history lesson, but also needed to write summaries of what they had learned. Next question, plan instruction that promotes a range of communication strategies and activity modes. Okay, the 6 language arts used in communication are reading, writing, speaking, listening, viewing, and visually representing. These skills are essential for effective communication and are interconnected in various ways. Reading involves understanding of written language. Writing involves expressing information in written form. Speaking and listening involve conveying messages orally. Viewing and visually represent Viewing and visually represent involve interpreting images and visual content. These language arts are crucial for all forms of communication, including academic, social, and personal interactions. In the inquiry lesson plan, students are asked questions by the teacher and give answers. They also put in reflections to put in words what they have learned. Many of the lessons involve students discussing with each other information. In my inquiry lesson, students read about and discussed the American states and American geography. Next question. Provide literacy instructions for all students that is active, motivating, and engaging. In Shifting the Balance, they talk about there's a lot of agreement about complexity of reading comprehension and the diversity of knowledge that deep reading requires. In fact, you may have noticed that many of these types of knowledge are also represented by substrates of language comprehension by Scarborough's Reading Rope. You've got, okay. And while it's clear that context knowledge is crucial for Jack, this is in the story, to understand what he has learned about ancient Greece, or in the book, it's obviously was not the only type of knowledge that mattered for him to develop his ever-expanding sense of all that he was reading. So basically, reading something that he's interested in. Of course, we can't determine what prior knowledge students bring with them when they come to school. We can, however, be intentional about the kinds of literacy opportunities students have in the classroom, providing pathways to intentionally accumulate varied kinds of knowledge that they will eventually strengthen their reading comprehension. Okay, next, in the strategy book, one of the strategy was to mini lessons. Teachers teach short, focused lessons called mini lessons on literacy strategies and skills. Topics for milestones include what to write an entry in a reading log. In these lessons, teachers introduce a topic and connect it to leading or writing. Students are doing reading or writing. Students are doing provide information and supervise students as they practice. Okay, so the best time to teach a mini lesson is when students have immediate opportunities to apply what they're learning. I think in the literacy lesson 2, narrative writing of a fairy tale, that was mine, it allowed students to use their background to create a story. Next question, model and develop digital literacy. Okay, so key skills for students in elementary school. Okay, well, the basic computer skills, understanding how to operate a computer and use software applications such as web browsing, word processing. Okay, learning to distinguish between reliable and unreliable sources, recognizing bias and fact-checking information. Citing sources, understanding plagiarism and the importance of proper citation when using online information. Etiquette, knowing how to communicate respectfully online, and principles of good digital citizenship. Safety awareness, very important, recognizing the dangers of internet, including cyberbullying and misinformation, learning how to navigate these challenges, and also when they have the social media at the upper grades maybe, they have to be careful what information they post. Okay, they must also respect copyright laws and sources such as pictures that may be copyrighted. Next question, how does your post Did evidence in your e-project or strategies in your textbook help you plan, design, implement, and monitor instructions? Okay. Well, I'm thinking the starting questions are a great way to grab students' attention. Providing information in an interesting way, like through videos, also increases their interest. Informal monitoring is done by asking students questions or having them discuss the topic with each other. A follow-up assignment or quiz can formally assess students' knowledge of the subject matter taught. In the strategies book on strategy is interactive readings aloud. That was the strategy, interactive readings aloud. The whole class activity is easy to implement as long as the teachers have planned how they'll engage students with the text. They follow these steps as they use their procedure. All right, pick a book. Teachers choose award-winning or other high-quality books that are appropriate for the students and that fit their instructional programs. They preview the book, introduce the book, and read. Okay. Now we have the last group of questions. Explain your plans in the following areas of instruction. Appropriate use of technology, including assistive technology. Okay, instructional technology is using smart boards and videos. For assistive technology, incorporating text-to-speech, speech-to-text, closed captioning, and screen readers to support diverse learners. Google Classroom also provides interactive lessons and provides a way to track students. Applying principles of UDL and MTSS. All right. That would be I keep losing the video, which I don't even know is getting recorded. I'll find out at the end. All right. Multiple means of representation. Okay. They present through visuals, hands-on activity, and language scaffolding. Means of engagement. Offer choices in projects, inquiry-based tasks, and culturally relevant phenomena. Means of expression. Allows students to demonstrate understanding through writing, oral presentations, models, or digital media. So basically, they kind of give them a choice on what they need. If the oral's better for them than writing, then maybe you want to do that. All right, and providing universal support for all, which means kind of targeting small groups, intervention, individualized plans. Use of developmentally, linguistically, and culturally appropriate learning activities. So, for all students, including English learners. So I think the use of translations and scaffolding questions for the English learners, language scaffolding, providing sentence frames, word banks, visual glossaries, cultural connections, integrate students' background into lessons, and accessibility of materials. So use level tests, bilingual resources, visuals, comprehension that would across language levels, and also you can put closed captioning in Spanish if they're Spanish speaking. All right, appropriate modifications for students with disability in general education classrooms. Okay, so I would say having students sit close in front of the class, provide voice recorded instructions, pair students with peer support, modify assignments, adjusting the length, complexity, formal of tasks, so maybe they don't have to do all the tasks, or maybe a different one. Use oral responses, visual projects, performance tasks instead of written-only assessments. And then there's always environmental supports, which provide sensory tools and quiet zones. Almost there. Okay, 5 opportunities for students to support each other in learning. Peer tutoring, collaborative projects, think, pair, share, which they do in the lessons a lot, encouraging students to dialogue about what they're learning. And learning circles facilitate small group discussions where students reflect and problem solve together. 6, use of community resources and services, applicable instructions. Okay, so my choice, looking at these, was the field trip, library field trip. But one of the things you could do is have guest speakers, local scientists, engineers, cultural leaders. In my elementary school, we went to, this was a field trip, City Hall, and saw the jail. So the small town El Segundo, where everything is in the City Hall and the fire station is just across the parking lot. So family engagement, incorporate parents' expertise and cultural knowledge into classroom activities. I remember okay, so going back to grade school. But I do remember we had one Japanese parent who came in and talked about Japan and its culture. Also in my observation class, one of the students' parents was in charge of PE. He has games with official rules all planned. Okay, that's it. I hope it works. Bye.